I started to introduce our first guest this morning in the last segment. I just was early because now we are set to visit with our friend, Anand Samy. He is co-host of America's Roundtable. You can hear that right here on SuperTalk Mississippi on the weekends. Part of the International Leaders Summit and good friend of SuperTalk Mississippi. Joel, good morning to you, my friend.
A very good morning to you, Richard and Lance. It's great to join you all on this beautiful Monday morning.
So was talking and kind of laid out the Charlie Kirk story a little bit in the last 20 minutes, half hour or so. And I think we're left with lots and lots of questions, but they're questions related to the assassination and the investigation and all of there. But I think we're left with questions of why. But not why was he killed. Why did his message, Charlie Kirk's message, resonate the way it did? And what next? I think that's the fascinating thing to see where this goal goes. So, Joel, first of all, talk to us a little about your relationship. Did you know Charlie? Did you have some interaction with him?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity joining you, Richard. Our thoughts and prayers are with Erica, the children, and the team at TPUSA. They just have done an extraordinary work under such difficult circumstances. In fact, over the years, we've really appreciated the tremendous work that Charlie accomplished. We were in the same circles, the same networks, the same gatherings. In fact, his team reached out to us not too long ago, the TPUSA chapter in New York, and asked us to be actually part of their team, partnering with them as international ambassadors. So we were truly delighted, and we're looking forward to joining Charlie and Joseph Scutts and the rest of them to make this announcement. So it's certainly something that we treasure. And, you know, as you rightfully mentioned, Charlie dedicated his life to protecting our God-given rights enshrined in the Constitution. And he really engaged in these fierce debates, but in a very principled way, respecting individuals. And he also challenged the Christian community, the pastors of the churches around the country, not just only to pray for our country, but to be engaged in the public square. And in fact, Charlie, Dr. Ben Carson, Mike Huckabee and others, we all were very concerned about the fact that evangelical Christians were not voting. And even we were really shocked to find out that 32 million evangelical Christians did not vote in the 2024 elections. And so that was Charlie's concern as well, really focusing on a reawakening in America. And he certainly did that with a young generation, but also engaging churches and pastors as well. He was a devout believer in Christ, what I would consider a modern day prophet and a great American patriot. And it is so tragic and so upsetting, to know that a young man, just a 22-year-old man, took his life away.
And Joel, one of the things that's fascinating to me is that Charlie Kirk was very much pro Donald Trump. But that does not mean that he agreed with Donald Trump on every issue. And when he disagreed, he spoke out. And sometimes that may have kind of, ruffled the feathers of people in the White House a little bit. But it was coming of a place of principle. And it's probably a reminder that we don't all have to agree on every single issue all the time, even if we're on the same team.
Absolutely. And that's what I think that all of us appreciated about Charlie. He was really grounded in principles. I mean, he knew free market principles. He knew all the great authors of our time. He was an avid reader, and he really stood by his principles. And if conservative leaders would veer off from, the path of focusing on upholding our core principles, he would certainly call that out. And but he also had a great eye of, just reaching out to people and identifying individuals. The story of how he first tracked down J.D. Vance by, sending him a message on social media and then, reaching out to him and actually endorsing him in the Senate. So, he certainly held to account, those within the conservative movement, but was very much involved in engaging conservatives and identifying rising stars and leaders and bringing them into the fold. And that was Charlie. He really wanted to grow the movement, and he did that so effectively.
We're going to continue to have conversations, probably not only today, but for weeks into the future about Charlie Kirk. Joel, I do want to ask you while we have the time to visit this morning about the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. You know, we had all the hullabaloo a few weeks ago about the summit in Alaska, and then you have European leaders that come to the United States, and it's lauded as a historic day, and all of these people are pulling together, and then we're supposed to be having a meeting between Zelensky and Putin, and then another meeting where Donald Trump is going to be there as kind of a third party. And it feels like nothing has happened in a month. What is, except for continued bombing back and forth and escalation within the war, what's going on here?
Well, I think there was a defining moment at this very juncture. Trump has finally called Russia the aggressor in the war against Ukraine. And by labeling Russia as the aggressor, it really shows that President Trump is taking a new direction. We also know that he has been pressing the European Union to stop buying oil from Russia. In fact, we have Hungary and Slovakia that are still purchasing oil. We also have Croatia that is a transit nation, a transit route for these alternative supplies to other European Union countries. We also have India, which actually racked up, they had just purchased about 1% of oil before the Ukraine war, and now they're up to about purchasing 40% of Russian crude, getting it through their refineries and exporting it to the rest of the world. So that has to stop. And I think this is the moment that we have to communicate to nations that are trading with America that if you want to do so, it is time to cut off all your ties to Russia. It's going to be hard to do that with China, but I think Putin has really showed his true self by even the drones that went into Poland, the drones that went into Romania. This is not just a mistake or a miscalculation. This is trying to test and gauge the response of America, of NATO. And I think Putin is really making a wrong decision. I think he is going to be facing a lot of challenges, not just only, with the cutoff of some of these countries not purchasing oil, but the fact that, he's got to experience these internal pressures within Russia. You have all these bodies of dead Russian soldiers coming back to the country. And I'm sure that's going to be fueling concerns for him and his close circle within the Kremlin.
Vladimir Putin has shown us time and time again that he's not willing to act until he's pushed, until he's backed into a corner. Right? I mean, it wasn't until the economic sanctions or the threat of the retaliatory tariffs went into effect that he's like, oh, let's go to Alaska. Let's sit down and talk about this. Is that what's going to happen to
Absolutely.
get him to capitulate for this to come to an end? Like, it's got to stop being a threat. It's got to be, okay, these are the things that are in place.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Richard. In fact, if India is able to stop purchasing Russian crude oil, if the European Union does the same as well, that's going to really put a great amount of pressure on Putin and the Kremlin.
But we have to convince them to do that, right?
Absolutely. We've got to actually push these secondary sanctions. We've got to increase that tariff on India if it so chooses to continue its relationship. And, we also have to, call to account and hold to account India in this whole process. It wants to trade with America. It says and proclaims that it's a democratic nation that is focused on protecting the sovereignty of nations. And yet, its credentials on the democratic front are questioned when it is siding with Russia. It's hanging out with Xi Jinping. And that doesn't send a strong signal of India's democratic credentials. It really questions all, the questions are out there about really where does India want to be? It cannot be a world leader if it certainly props the dictators and those that are against the Western civilization.
And ultimately, where China wants to be, China can pretend to be aligning with India. They can pretend to be aligning with Russia. But we know that ultimately China is about China and what is best for them. Is it best for them to side with Russia and probably push them toward a conflict with the United States? Or is it better for them to sit this one out for now and say, sorry, we're not quite ready to go fully to war with the United States, which nobody wants. That's not good for anybody.
Absolutely. And China has been fueling all that's transpiring in Russia. If we want to think about their close alliance, their partnership, bringing Putin to Beijing, at that military parade with the North Korean leader, the dictator there. And, basically you're dealing with an axis of upheaval, an axis of evil that we're having to face as Americans.
Joel, unfortunately, we're out of time. I appreciate, as always, your time. Joel and Anand Samy, America's Roundtable. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Richard.